Hello, this is David from DN Cognitive Counseling. Today we have a request by one of our subscribers, Mary, to talk about relapse or what to do after a relapse takes place. I hope that you like this video, and if you didn't like this video, that you'll tell me why, and I hope that you'll subscribe to this channel. But let's get right to it because this is a very important topic. They say relapse is a part of recovery. And what does that mean? And what should you do if a relapse takes place? When you're involved in the recovery process, you're going through a very turbulent time. A lot of learning, a lot of emotions, a lot of new sensations. And what happens is that as you develop certain skills, things at times get tested. If you're working a recovery program and a relapse takes place, then there are certain things that you should do almost immediately. Number one is stop using. Now, that may sound obvious, but the fact is what people generally do is they say, I already used once, so I might as well keep going. And when I say stop using, I mean because the assumption is that that relapse is one-time use after a prolonged period of abstinence. It does not mean you went ahead and used for 7, 8, 9, 10 days straight and then went, oh, well, I'll stop using now. Because at that time, you have to be careful whether or not you're going to create a physical dependency in the body once again. So when I say that you need to stop using, I'm talking about after the initial use. It is very important to note that, again, a lot of people, when they say they relapsed, they don't mean they relapsed, they binged. And they binge for 3 days, 5 days, a week. That becomes a little bit different because then you have to evaluate whether or not you need detox. Did you create a physical dependency once again? So it really does depend on what you mean when you say you relapsed and how much did you use, how often, and was it a matter of a relapse or was it a matter of a binge? Now, once you establish that it was a relapse, which means that you use one time, there's a number of things you should do. Number one, if you don't have a sponsor, you should find one. But if you have one, you should reach out to them. A lot of people don't like to do that because they feel embarrassed and they feel like they've failed. And that's a big mistake. In fact, that's what happens. You get the pour me a drink. You start to feel like somehow you've done something wrong because you relapsed. But the best thing you can do when you get into a hole is to stop digging. And by reaching out for that help, you're going to take a very positive step. And there's a lot of strength involved in that. Most people in recovery have relapsed numerous times. There's very little judgment when it comes to a relapse when a person is being honest about it. What more often you'll see is that people's denial will be what people react to. When somebody is being evasive or other people know that you're using and you're claiming that you have sobriety, then you'll get a lot of snickering behind the back, as happens a lot. I'm not condoning it, I'm just saying that's what happens. But when a person comes out and says, this is what I've done, this is what happened, generally, for the most part, they get a lot more openness and they get a lot more people who are supportive to them because the others feel been there, done that. And when you have a sponsor, a proper sponsor, they also understand that and they will be supportive to you. Now, you could also reach out for treatment. And again, depending on where you're at, whether or not you need a detox, an outpatient program or an inpatient program, a TC, it all very much depends on what's been going on. But for the most part, if you've relapsed, just going to hitting more meetings could be helpful to you. And utilizing that support network if you've been in recovery. Now, a lot of people like to talk about their relapse when they don't have any of that and they aren't working recovery. They've maintained a period of abstinence without any of the work. Now, I don't call that relapse. I call that abstinence and back to using. It's a very big difference because when you're when you say a relapse is part of recovery is only when you're working a recovery process. When you just stay sober for a period of time, be it for many different reasons, you're on parole, you're on probation, you're trying to save a house, you don't want to lose a job, that period of abstinence has nothing to do with a relapse. That period of abstinence has to do with another factor that as soon as it's gone, you're going back to using. In order for a relapse to take place, you must have a desire to stop using. And again, stop using. Not stop using for a period of time. And that's the difference in terms of recovery and abstinence. Now, again, when you relapse, do not blame yourself. Do not put yourself down. Try to say, I'm doing exactly what everybody else has done, and there's no purpose in being shameful or feeling guilt. The issue is to find out, why did this happen? Where is my recovery going wrong? Where are my weak spots? And this goes back to your fourth step. When you look at your Searching Fearless Moral Inventory, is where you're going to see where this went wrong. What does your relapse look like? How did this happen to me? What was I not doing before? For a lot of people, the I could just have one is a big issue. That belief in I could just use a little bit and that's going to be okay. And for the most part, it's not normally okay and normally doesn't stay okay for long. So I want you to think about those things, those aspects. And again, if you have any other questions or any other aspects that I did not address, please feel free to write. And I'll be very happy to address that. But I hope this was helpful. And again, I hope that you'll subscribe, that you hit like, and to forward this to anybody else who may be struggling with their addiction. And again, if anybody has any other question that they themselves feels like they want to be addressed, please feel free. And Mary, again, I hope that you'll be able to strengthen your recovery. And if there's anything else I could do, please feel free to ask.